Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Keith Pascal, UCMDB Global Support Lead. Today we're going to talk about troubleshooting reconciliation, specifically duplicates. So when I'm troubleshooting reconciliation, which logs are going to tell me the story of what's going on? Well, the multiple match log, that being the CMDB reconciliation data in multiple match.log, will show these multiple matches. If you enable trace level debugging, then you will see the results of each individual rule. In this case, we see some verification where the string interface description is pseudo, and another one where the string interface description is pseudo1, and that the interface description is the target that we're looking at. And so in verification, these would result in false. Verification is the absolute match. So if anything fails verification, they will not merge, period, ever. So let's take a brief look at reconciliation itself. So there's three different sections. Actually, there's two major sections and one subsection. So the first major section is identification. In this case, we are trying to find all of the possible matches for a given CI. We get a large pool of potential matches. In the identification section of a rule, anything that is true, any rule that results in a true value, means that that CI is going to be added to the list of possible matches for this particular CI. Then we get into the second part of reconciliation and the first subsection of the second part, which is verification. Verification is absolutely, positively must not differ. And these are negative checks only. So we're unconcerned with a true or unknown result in the second part, in the verification part. We are only concerned with false results. And if something is false in verification, then it will not merge with the other CI that we're trying to merge it with. The last part and the second part of the reconciliation subsection is validation. And this is a prioritized list. We're going to match the first true value, and that is going to win. All unknown means we will win as well. Winning defined by merging CIs. So if you have two CIs, they do identify to one another. They do not have any false values in the verification attributes. And in validation, any rule is true. If any of the rules is true in validation, we will merge those devices. It doesn't matter if others are false. If any rule is true, they will be merged. If all of the rules evaluate to unknown, meaning that one or more of the identification attributes don't exist, so if we're trying to match name and primary DNS name, and name is empty, it's null, then that rule will result in an unknown value. So if everything is unknown, then we will also merge those two CIs. All right, so how do I find duplicates? Well, generally, you could create some kind of TQL that can be run to compare with the same type of CI, which is a non-self relationship. So for example, this TQL that is on the right, those are two nodes, they are joined, and the join itself is non-self relationships. And okay, I've got my TQL, so now what? What do I do after that? Well, I have to examine the reconciliation rule. I need to look at which attributes are used for reconciliation and then build a view that show those and also examine the surrounding CIs. So here is an example. I have below a view, and instead of looking at the map view, you can switch to a text view. and add all of the reconciliation attributes. All of the reconciliation attributes are not in my list that exists below, right? These are the default ones that might be there. So we're going to click on the columns, and then we'll go over into the reconciliation rule to look at all of the different attributes for a CI type that are used for reconciliation. For example, connected interfaces with a match of MAC addresses, and that is a 66% match. Connected IP addresses with a 66% match, where the IP lease time is 0. The IP address property is not in the list of Anycast, broadcast, loopback, multicast, link local, or IPv4 mapped IPv6. The name attribute, the SNMP sysname attribute, the NetBIOS name attribute, the connected IP address with 66% match, where the IP lease time is 0. The IP address property is not in the list of Anycast, broadcast, loopback, multicast, link local, IPv4, mapped IPv6, and the name of the IP address and the routing domain of the IP address. The BIOS serial number, the BIOS UUID, the serial number, the BIOS asset tag, the UD unique ID, primary DNS, the host NNM UID, which is also called the node NNM UID, the cloud instance ID, the VM ID, the cloud VM display name, and the VMware MoreRef, which is the reference for the object in VMware, the OS family, the connected asset with a matching asset tag, or in case all of these match, we're going to prefer a cluster resource group, and the VMware MoreRef. So I've got my new view with the reconciliation attributes. So now I see these are all the reconciliation attributes for Node, and I'm looking at my CIs that match. One of them was default domain 3.3.3.3. The other was 2 nodes named test1. So I've got the name and serial number populated for the bottom 2. Is this enough for identification? Does it pass verification? Are there any positive matches for validation? Those are the 3 questions that you need to ask. So is there enough for identification? Yeah. It has a serial number and it has a name. Both of these are listed in the reconciliation rule in the identification section. Well, does it pass verification? Yep. There are no rules in verification that say that the serial numbers have to be identical or that the names have to be identical. So life is good. Are there any positive matches in validation? No. For all of the different rules, if we insert what we know about those 2 CIs, there are no matches for the name only. There are no matches for the serial number only. There is a negative match, a false value for name and serial number. So everything results with unknown and 1 results in false, and therefore no merge is going to happen. But that only deals with 2 of the CIs. We also had 2 nodes that had no information in the node, the node itself. You can see that these are the top 2 values here. So we'll examine the additional CIs that are around those nodes and then compare them to each CI that exists, right? Because we have an attached asset CI that we need to look at, an attached IP address that we need to look at, and the interface rules for the node, okay? Now, the names of all of these IP addresses is the IP address itself, and the routing domain is default domain for all of them. So I've got 2 nodes, right? And they do have some attached CIs. So looking at the attached CIs, I can see the one on the right has interfaces 2.2.2.2, 3.3.3.3, 4.4.4.4, and 5.5.5.5. The one on the left has 3.3.3.3, 5.5.5.5, 6.6.6.6, and 7.7.7.7. Only 50% of these match. The 3s and the 5s match for both, right? So it has 50% of the IP addresses of the other guy. However, that reconciliation rule specifically said it needed to have 66%. And so there is no even identification between these two nodes because they don't have enough overlapping IP addresses. I hope this helps you find what duplicates you might have and how to solve those problems that you might have. In this case, we would have to make sure that one of these is actually correct. One of them probably has the right IP addresses on it, and one of them probably does not have. If they come from a spreadsheet, perhaps the spreadsheet is in error. The same thing goes true with the two nodes that had the different serial numbers. More than likely, one of those serial numbers was changed. Maybe it was a virtual machine, and when we recreated the virtual machine, it created a new serial number, and that's why those two things are different. But you have to look at your discovery source and go out to the device itself and find out which one of those is true. Now, the other one you could retire, or if it's no longer being updated, it will eventually be aged out. But generally, we want to resolve duplicates in UCMDB so as not to cause problems down the road. Thank you very much for your time and have a wonderful day.